I'd just like to say something about the BSA that was happening at the town green. I went and participated that day. So.
Oh, perfect. I think we will do it, and we'll see. We'll just, whoever has something can speak. We are back live on YouTube. We are reconvening an open session. Again, this is the open session component of the June 29th, 2021 regular school board meeting for the Windsor Unified School District. I think, let's see. Sorry, little technical issue on my end. Apologies for that. But it is 6:11, and Jen, can we have a roll call, please?
Stephanie Ahmad.
Here.
Rich Carnation.
You're on mute, Rich.
Here. I was trying to unclick it.
Bill Adams.
Here.
Eric Heitz.
Here.
Malinali Lopez.
Here.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the flag salute, and leading today is Rich Carnation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then Superintendent Decker, do we have anything to report out of closed session?
We do not.
All right. We will move on to 3.1, adjustments to the agenda. Are there any for today's meeting? I don't think there are any adjustments. Okay. 3.2, public comment on open session items. I don't believe we have any public comment today. And
Not that I've received.
Okay, great. And then 3.3 is staff association reports. I see that we have Pete Stefanisco and Brad Freeland. Do either of you have a report for today? And maybe start with Pete.
No, nothing really to report. It's been kind of slow, so I guess that's good. Happy summer, everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing that it's summer and everyone is taking some much needed time off. Brad, anything from CSEA?
No, at this point, no. We're looking forward to making sure everything's ready to go to start school.
Great. Thank you. Oh, and I was on mute, but I heard what I said. I said we have our superintendent's report. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's the majority of what we're working on right now is hiring. It's hiring season. We have a number of positions out. Obviously, looking to hire our next CBO. Hello, Lois. So that is posted, and hopefully we'll have that in place before the beginning of school. But I would say that's probably where our focus is right now. That'll be my superintendent's report for now.
That was a very brief superintendent's report, but perfect for the time we are in, which is summer and taking a much needed break after a very busy year. So item 3.5 is the Board of Trustees report. I know that Eric Heitz has something to report, and then other board members can go if they have items.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to give a little shout out to the Windsor High School Black Student Union, who on, well, it wasn't exactly the 19th, but they had a June 19th celebration on the town green last weekend. I went and attended and saw some wonderful singing and poetry reading and a lot of good activities where they were giving out information and different booths for the community. Councilwoman Lemus and Reynosa were both there. I know Principal Williams was there and a few of our teachers as well. And so I just wanted to commend them on a good civic outreach to our community and a positive experience for me and for all the others that I saw involved. It was just a great atmosphere and a lot of community awareness for issues that are in the public eye right now. So thanks to that group. And if you see any of the key players, please acknowledge that they did a great job, and maybe in the future we can have them come and give a report during one of the times where we have club meetings and things like that on our agenda in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Does anyone else on the board have anything to report? I don't see anyone. Okay. Then I believe we are moving on to consent action items. I'll turn it over to Rich.
Alrighty, I'd like to make a motion that we approve consent items 4.1 through 4.8. If I can have a second, that'd be great.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Melanelli. Is there any discussion on any of these items? I kind of have two comments, but just quick ones. Does anybody else have any comments? See, okay, basing on 4.4, I just would like, I understand the purpose of this. I just, next year, or maybe during our retreat, I'd like to discuss this concept, that there might be some other ways, better ways, that we can leverage that. It's not a large dollar amount, but anyhow, that was just something I want to discuss a little bit later. And then on 4.6, I think we were waiting to find out whether or not SCO state come back and said anything about whether village with the charters, if it's not in our district, whether or not we're supposed to be able to continue to oversee and manage them. So I didn't know if we had any further guidance from the state on that.
I haven't done anything with that. I didn't know that was something that we were looking into.
Yeah, it was, I think it was right before we hired you and then COVID hit and what have you. And I think the state came out. Oh, Lois has got a hand up.
My memory is at the time of the renewal, we looked into it, and basically the district where they reside has, for lack of a better term, first right of refusal. And we reached out to them and they were not interested in authorizing it. So we went ahead and approved their charter for the next 5 years under us.
Very good.
So
Thanks, Lois. Okay. Any other comments on any of these, 4.1 through 4.8? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Righty. Consent items 4.1 through 8 pass 5-0. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we'll now move on to item 5.1, which is an update from the Windsor Education Foundation. I am also a board member of the Windsor Education Foundation, and I'll let Superintendent Decker introduce this item.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to introduce Diana. She's from the We Foundation representative. We got together early on in the year, and Diana said, "How can we support you? What can we do with COVID?" And so we had some big ideas, and it went away for a little while, and then lo and behold, Diana came back with some major plans. And so I was very impressed with my introduction to the We Foundation and how active you guys have been. So Diana is going to give a presentation on all that you've been up to over the past few months.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to talk to it. I know there's probably death by PowerPoint. So just going to give a few highlights for you all from the Windsor Educational Foundation. So as you know, our mission is to help financially support students and programs in all the schools in the Windsor Unified School District. And we have really two major activities I want to give an update on over the last year, which of course has been a year of change for everyone, including the Windsor Educational Foundation. One is our scholarship program, and this program has been running for several years now, and I wanted to take the opportunity to give you all an update. We do provide scholarships to students, seniors in WUSD. This year in the 2021 graduating class, we were able to provide scholarships to 31 students, a variety of different types of scholarships that we provided. We also we had a successful fundraiser this year, which was a big deal since we had to go virtual during COVID. We did a scholarship breakfast for dinner virtually, and we were able to raise over $29,000 that will go, all of that will go towards scholarships for next year. So we're really, really excited about that. We've also partnered with the Vineyard Academy and with CTE programs through the North Bay Construction Corps to support scholarships through those organizations as well. So I'm just delighted that we've been able to continue that really successful effort that started a few years ago. The other big item that I wanted to share and that Superintendent Decker referenced is something that we spent a lot of time putting thought towards this year and really starting last summer as we were in the middle of the COVID pandemic and as we were facing a lot of social unrest and protests about injustice and racial injustice in the United States. And we took a step back at the WE Foundation and said, what is it that we can do in a district where we have students, who are from a variety of backgrounds, 50% Latino? How can we support our students better? And I'm really grateful to those of you here who took the time to talk with us, with Superintendent Decker, Malinali Lopez. Thank you very much for your time. Brian Williams, and Annette Zucconi spent time with us. A lot of people in the district and community members as well. So I do want to acknowledge a few folks: David Hamelberg, Laura Malfavon, Samuel Reyes, also really helped this move this effort forward. And where we landed was we would like to launch a paid mentoring program for students in the district, with a pilot starting hopefully in the fall, starting with students at Brooks Elementary and paying mentors from the high school. And so this is a really, I think, a differentiating thing for this program to provide. And this, I really want to thank Malinali Lopez for this idea to provide paid educational opportunities to students so that we can allow students who wouldn't normally be able to do the unpaid internship, right? They need to bring in some income for themselves and their family. We are also planning on partnering with Mentor Me, which is based out of Petaluma. They run end-to-end mentoring programs currently for 18 schools in Petaluma. They've been doing it for many, many years. They're expanding to Roanoke Park, and they are interested in partnering with us as well. And we're very grateful to Superintendent Decker for providing the funding for this program to get it off the ground, particularly for the Mentor Me aspects of it. WE Foundation is going to be looking into how we can raise the funds for the paid stipends for the students at the high school. So it's exciting. We've got a lot of folks on the foundation and involved with the foundation who are excited about it. We're hoping we start with this pilot program and we grow from there. But that was the primary reason I wanted to come and talk to you all tonight, was to express what we're doing and express our excitement and gratitude for the partnership from Principal Williams and from Principal Zucconi. They've been extremely supportive of this from the moment we've mentioned it. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. I want to make one last update. WE Foundation is, I think, very strongly associated with Project Hero, fundraising vehicle for the schools each fall. We did suspend that this last fall in the light of COVID and remote learning, and we are exploring how we can start that up again this coming fall. It's a very important fundraising mechanism for the schools in the district. So that's where we are, small but mighty, just like the Windsor Unified School District and the board. I'm happy to take any questions, but I just wanted to give an update to you all and thank you very much, Superintendent Decker, for your incredible support of this idea and this program.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Bill.
I want to say I am so pleased to hear this news. It's fantastic. I did hear that your scholarship program had grown exponentially, and it's just really fantastic news, and it makes me so happy also that you're implementing the Mentor Me program.
Thank you.
Thanks, Malinali. Go ahead, Bill. I saw your hand up.
Yeah, Diana, Superintendent Decker has talked with us a little bit about reinvigorating the PTAs at the various schools. And I wonder if you and maybe he could share with us a little bit about how you see that coordination between the Ed Foundation and the PTAs. For example, I think in terms of like a Project Hero kind of fundraiser may be something that perhaps transition to PTAs, or how do you see this rolling out, maybe to both you and Jeremy?
You want to start, Diana?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, we've discussed this internally in the We Foundation. We would welcome with open arms the establishment of PTAs at the schools. That we have about 5 or 6 people on our board right now, which is really not a replacement for a PTA. So I think what we've been trying to do this last year is really figure out where we can really lean in and make a difference with sort of targeted programs that affect multiple students in the district. I mentioned Project Hero because in our conversations with all the principals this year, it became very apparent how important that was to them, and we did not want to step back from it without there being something else in place. So that's the more engagement we can have in the district, the better, and the more money that we can have from all sources in the district, the better. That's my view, and I think I speak also for the board of the We Foundation.
Yeah, Bill, I would echo that. I think that there's a place for both organizations for sure. I think a foundation is really targeted projects or programs. I think a PTA is very specific to the school, and it changes yearly based on what the needs are at the time. Not that We Foundation doesn't, but I think that we can identify some long range things that we want to focus on with our foundation, and then really some, short term, quick things with PTA. It's pretty nimble when you're a PTA at a site.
I saw Eric's hand.
Yes. Hello, Diana. I know that you and Stephanie work very hard in addition to the other board members for the We Foundation. If there are community members or parents that are out there that would like to get involved, maybe you could share some information on how they could do that so that we don't have those same 5, and eventually they'll be aging out with their children and all those things that we don't like happening, but it's part of it. So maybe you could share a little bit of information or contact on how people could reach out and be part of your group.
Thank you so much. That's an excellent suggestion. Yes. So we have our website is windsorwe.org, or you can Google Windsor Educational Foundation. And our email is windsorwe@gmail.com. And we are definitely, looking for more members for our committees, for our board. And we'd love to increase the diversity of our membership to reflect the community so that, we'll have better programming if we have more input and more diverse input. So thank you for raising that.
Any more comments? I thank you, Diana. I think your presentation was awesome. I'm on the board as well, so I'm, I think I'm pretty up to speed on what's been going on. But you've done tremendous things and stewarded former students who are a part of Diana's committee on the We Foundation, and they've developed this mentoring program. They really spent this past year figuring out what would be the best way to serve students who have kind of been impacted in all kinds of ways by what we've just experienced. So I'm really proud of what you all have been working on. And I think no more comments. So thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item, which is, since we are in 5.1, I'll just make sure there are no comments on this item, which I don't believe there are comments on.
If you just, hopefully Diana can stick around for the next 5.2, because actually I have an idea that I was going to run by her. So run by the We Foundation, but maybe she can hear it and bring it back.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay. Sounds good.
I have not received any public comments, Stephanie.
Okay, perfect. So we'll move on to 5.2. We have Elizabeth Robertson here. I'll let Lisa Saxon introduce this item.
So as part of our annual update, our VAPA coordinator keeps us abreast of what's happening with regard to implementation of our VAPA strategic plan. So with us this evening is Elizabeth Robertson, who has a presentation to share with us. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hello, everyone. Oh, may I have screen sharing privileges? please. There we go. So, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. And as always, it is such a pleasure to share about what is happening with the visual and performing arts in Windsor. We are a district we are constantly looking for ways to provide quality and equitable access to the arts. And as part of that, we have, for those of you who don't know, we have a strategic arts plan. And the strategic arts plan has 4 components: curriculum and professional learning, families and community engagement, program development and leadership, and facilities, equipment, and supplies. And each year we have various goals in each of these areas. Because I'm going to go quickly tonight, I want to let our board know that I have provided in the agenda links to a more in-depth report that I put together that goes through item by item with what we have achieved and what we're hoping to achieve next year. But I'm going to have a chance, I'm going to kind of get to some of the highlights, and then I'm going to get to the financials as well. So one of the things that I want to make such a big deal about is that we in visual performing arts have survived, like everyone. We've survived teaching through and learning through a pandemic. And what's been really phenomenal is that we haven't just survived, we've thrived. And there are some strategies and treasures and learning that we're going to take through as we continue through. So it's actually led not just to adversity, but to innovation. And that's what I find really exciting about our programs in Windsor in particular. So how do the arts benefit our students? I'm going to do this quickly, but what it's going to do is going to show you that there are lots and lots of ways. And then when I get to everything on the slide, I'm just going to pause for a moment and let you just take it in. So the arts are critical for our thinking and observation skills, for helping our students develop their motor skills, their social skills, decision-making, all those things that we want in their social emotional learning. The arts also give students an aesthetic vocabulary, presentation, color, layout, how to present themselves both visually and as performers and speakers. We continue to have students persevere and self-reflect through the arts. And arts is also a really huge part of developing positive school and community culture. And the arts ultimately help increase academic engagement with our students. So students are excited about what they learn in the arts, and that transfers directly to all of their other learning areas. And that's one of the strengths of Windsor is we are developing very, very strong arts integration programs. So just take a moment, all the things on the screen, it's a lot. And the arts do all of these. Creates a busy, busy screen that when I started putting them on, I realized it didn't all fit. It's amazing to me. So this is not, I know this is a messy slide. This is mainly a placeholder to show you that there is a detailed summary, but it's also an opportunity that I just want to focus in on some of the achievements this year. We had over more than 11 iAspire Arts Integration skill building lessons that were adapted for distance learning. So we took what we were doing in the classroom and adapted it for our online distance learning. We also provided weekly or bi-weekly arts specialists in the form of music for our students at Brooks at grade 3, and then all students in grades 3 through 5 at Cali. And then we also had both distance and hybrid arts learning at our secondary schools. We kept it going. We didn't stop it. And then one of the biggest things that has happened during the pandemic as we've really strengthened our ability to communicate with each other. And there's been more communication about how the arts can grow. So those are some really, really big things that have happened this year. We had the arts be part of a priority when we were funding materials for students this year. That included arts materials, both for students to create, but also for students to build their skills in the arts. And these were all integrated into the 11 lessons that I mentioned earlier. Students during their specialist classes, as well as during arts integration, had a chance to create instruments and create artwork that they can then share with each other and show how they can create. It was another way for them to connect with each other. And as well as students were able to connect their arts learning with other subject areas. In this case, students created artwork about the characters in fictional narratives that they wrote. So a lot of things were able to happen. And as I mentioned, we also strengthened our connections both within our Windsor Unified School District. So we had teachers having more communication about the arts, but also we have strengthened our affiliations throughout the county and beyond. One of the biggest things is we have been very, very active with the Sonoma County Arts Education Alliance. I was actually just recently selected to be a steering committee co-chair for the Sonoma County Arts Education Alliance. So I've been putting Windsor front and center, which has been really fun. And then a big, big thing that's super exciting is we received a $60,000 grant from the National Endowment for the Arts for arts projects. We were one of 3 in the nation to be selected from a school district. They gave most of the projects, and there was over $57 million given out. Majority of that money went to nonprofit organizations or state and county arts orgs or education orgs. And we were one of 3 in the nation to be actually selected as a school district. And we got the largest grant out of the 3 school districts. That was really, really exciting. And that's going to allow us to do a lot with especially with our I Aspire program this year. So this past year, as you can see with what we actually did, we had to pivot a lot. With a lot of things that we planned to do, we had to postpone. A lot of it was things that we would need to meet. A lot of it was building infrastructure. So those things were put on the back burner, partly because we needed to put funds towards distance learning and towards COVID-related finances. So we were in the arts world, we were okay with that because we wanted everyone to succeed. One of the big things that we did do this year was we continued to have a Vapatosa, and that allowed for a lot of that pivot to distance learning, as well as we did have some arts residencies that we were able to get for free from some local artists. We also were able to have an online summit that we invited Sonoma County and Windsor teachers for arts integration. And then we also, in a smaller amount, we were able to have 3 sessions with some of our I Aspire grade level leads. And what we're doing with that is we are working towards creating a arts integration strategy library to be launched in the fall. So you get to hear more about that. So it's really, really exciting working with our I Aspire leads. Coming up this coming year, we always have big dreams. One of the things that the $60,000 grant is going to help fund is additional TOSA time, and that's going to be used to help coach teachers and to, especially some of our newer teachers, to help them onboard and thrive with arts integration. We're going to bring back our lead teachers, and they're going to be trained I'm going to be a trainer of trainers so that they can then go into their classrooms, go into their school sites, and do focused and targeted arts integration training with teachers and students. BES was really excited about having a visual arts specialist residency. They're going to be working towards that with some site funds. Another area that we have not done in the past and that I would really want to ask the board to look at and to consider is, and this is a big ask, but is to consider some funds that can be specifically for the sites and VAPA, because VAPA is not necessarily something we can do for free. And mainly we're not always just thinking about right away, but we're thinking about the future. So one of the things we did with when we had the SSAE grant, the 1.7 million, we bought instruments. We bought about over $100,000 worth of instruments. But one of the things that we have to do is maintain instruments. And so one of the things I would like to have the district consider is instrument repair budgets for Cali, the middle school and the high school at $3,000 a year. And that could at each site, and that could help offset some of that. And hopefully if we did not use all of it, if it could roll over, that would also be helpful. But some years we don't have a lot, some years we have a lot. This year, it was a pretty big one because we had instruments come back broken from the pandemic, meaning students broke things. Another thing that we've learned this year is that we figured out what are some of the really fabulous technology tools that we can use with students, especially as we go to one-to-one Chromebooks. And so one of the things that our VAPA teachers have been asking me for and speaking to me about has been how can we continue our subscriptions at sites, but also how can we improve some of our instructional materials. So when I say VAPA technology and instructional materials, that's not just music, but that's some of our other areas. But I'd like for there to be possibly $1,000 per the 4 sites, BES, Cali, middle school, high school, so that there's some discretionary funds for VAPA at each site so that we can continue to provide really high quality materials for students. And then another big thing that we're going to be moving into is continuing to work to strengthen what we do in the community, both through our Windsor Arts Now, but other organizations as well. And we're hoping to reinstate Windsor at Wild Showcase at Wild Hall. And we had a grant that we received last year that we have still held on to. So that will hopefully be done next year. So you are welcome to dive deeper into all these things. I went as fast as I possibly could, being cognizant of time. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and both today and in the future. And I really want to be a resource for the board. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was awesome. Does anyone have any comments? Bill, Eric?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I agree. I think TOSA is a wonderful thing. That's a teacher-owned special assignment. Would that be something that would be the same person? Would it be you for both periods or both 0.2s, or would it be at a different site for a different person? What's your best wish for that?
That's me. At this point, that's what my contract says. It allows for there to be one person overseeing arts integration and arts initiatives, because essentially what I do within that position is implement and steward the strategic arts plan initiatives each year. And one of the big asks that I got from teachers from last year was the need for coaching. And the NEA grant allows us to add that on as well. I hope that answers.
And then Bill, you had a comment?
Oh, yeah, I do. Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you. So I'll just say it off the chute. I think we should be spending 10 times this money. I look at your sheet when we have 27,000 from grants, that leaves of the 48 proposed expenditure, 21,000. That's less than $5 a student in a year. I am not criticizing you. I'm saying to my colleagues, we need to get serious about this. I noticed last year we saved $85,000 we didn't spend. I'd like to start by rolling that in. I notice in the LCAP on page 21 of 59, it lists $150,000 towards VAPA. And I wonder how we're harmonizing that. It looks like there was 45,000 in LCFF and 105 of federal funds. Was that 105 what we thought we might get from the NEA? And we ended up with 60, you know? Yeah, okay, thanks, Lise.
Yeah, we got less than we asked for, but right. We got something. So.
Right, I understand. I know we had worked with Bob Bullwinkle, who partnered us with the Boys and Girls Club as a nonprofit. Was there any response to the larger scale Sonoma County application through? All right, what was that?
That is an additional grant, and I think that we'll hear between September or October.
Okay,
about
we
that
don't know yet.
particular
Okay.
grant. I think that's the timeline,
Okay, thanks.
but it's the fall, definitely.
Okay.
That's really exciting. That'll help us out quite a bit. So
Share with my
the other
colleagues
thing I
the
didn't
magnitude
mention,
of that.
so the grant, 60,000. Yeah, so the $60,000 grant that we have received, that's a matching grant. So 60,000, the district will also be putting 60,000 into it as well. And it's over 2 years.
Okay, so 30 a year.
And I'm happy to provide the board with the proposed budget that we gave the NEA.
Okay, is that where the 27,000 shows up on this 2021 proposed expenditures? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just suggest to my colleagues, this needs to be $200,000. I cannot believe when I saw these numbers. Thank you for tracking it. And Elizabeth, this is not directed at you. I'm embarrassed for us at $5 a student for a year. And I just wonder where Superintendent Decker, if we have one-time money, can we get one-time money? Where's the 85,000 we didn't spend last year?
But can I ask a clarifying question, Bill? So part of, for arts expenditures, we didn't include, well, what's not included in any of this is the cost of a section to provide all of these different courses. So I guess my question is, when you're saying increase how much we spend on, I wouldn't look at the dollars. I'd say what are we hoping? What do we want to do with the dollars that isn't addressed in here? Are you thinking of adding more courses, or are you thinking of increasing the VAPA TOSA position, the training? I guess that's my question to you. What?
All five, every one of those things. I think this is under ambitious. I think it's a step backwards. I think we just need to kickstart and get going. I had one other question, Elizabeth. You talked about the strategic arts plan, and you had the 4 components.
Yes.
Is that an adaptation of the board-approved plan from January 2018? Okay. So, for example, Jeremy, in that 13-page plan with 33 areas was to break out of certificated salaries that portion of VAPA teachers, right? The music teachers, the photography teacher, and an art teacher at the high school, the portion that goes to a part-time choral student. I don't think that's going to happen this year, but that would be a way to track that. Yeah, I think we really need, I don't know if I'm not seeing heads nod from my peers, so I don't see that there's another 100,000 going to be put in here. I'm stunned. I mean, I don't want to direct it to Elizabeth because she's part of the solution, but I cannot believe that this is our approach to put $21,000 of our money as our commitment to VAPA. If we have breaking out 7 or 8 certificated teachers, and that's been the status quo, then let's show that that's what we're doing. I think that's part of the problem is we have a fairly robust program. But yeah, I'm curious what my other trustees think, because we've got to circle around and do better at this.
I do have a question. My question is on your slides, Elizabeth. Well, first of all, thank you for that presentation. There was a lot of information on those slides, but I didn't see that there was a breakout, bullet point about video production. And I know the Windsor High School has a fantastic facility, and I was wondering where that fits into your plan.
So a lot of our strategic arts plan focuses at this time at our elementary level, because that's where our biggest, in 2018, when we wrote when the plan was written, I can't say I was not here. That was the biggest area of the gap, was that, so we focused on the younger grades. And then, so then most of the things like video production and things in the Nueva Corps are often CTE, often funded by CTE. And so we haven't funded, that has not traditionally been as much part of VAPA. And that's actually one of my hopes for next year, is figure out like how we can all kind of work together. But most of our focus has been on getting arts integration going at the elementary level. But video production is something that is happening at the high school, from my understanding through the Nueva Corps. Am I correct, Brian?
You are.
It's more than just the Nueva Corps. And we have we have video production, we have digital photography, we have traditional art, plus all of the other music programs, the drama programs, and that's 612. So there's quite a bit of programs that are happening in this district, and a huge amount of resources that go towards them. But you're absolutely correct, Elizabeth, that they're focused 612.
I think to build your point, I think what you want to see is a break, almost like it's a separate item. What are we spending on VAPA, right? Because I don't think this is representative of our investment as a district on VAPA.
No, it
I
was just
absolutely
the
agree.
items from the strategic. And the reason for that, and I actually, when I was putting this together, I reached out, I tried to figure out like, what have we spent in various areas? And unfortunately, they're not coded VAPA for the most part. Most of them are coded as from site funds or site items or technology.
All
or
over the place, yeah.
instructional materials. They're not coded VAPA, so I don't know if that's a bigger discussion to see if there's ways to track, because that would be a really beneficial for everyone.
Can I make a suggestion? So I'm hearing interest, and it's been a while since we have done a needs assessment. That's how we started this process years back. You're right, Elizabeth, you were not here at that time. And we basically looked under every rock, TK through 12, and divided the visual and performing arts into each of the areas, the subset areas, and identified grade level by grade level what students were getting in each of those areas. And perhaps it would be helpful, given the transition of boards and even site leadership, to conduct that process again and compare that to the strategic plan so that the board gets a more accurate, if you will, picture of the actual VAPA investment in Windsor Unified. So Molinali, for example, you're asking a great question. And no, that's not factored into what you're seeing tonight, because we're picking up from where we left off with what do we want to do next via the strategic plan. So if we step back and take a look at the whole district picture again and see where are we now, and not to mention, let's not forget, last year we were on distance learning trying to figure out how to continue VAPA. Bless Elizabeth, she worked really hard to do the best that she could, but it was challenging for teachers to continue the work that had been done. So maybe a bit of a restart, if you will, and a review of where we are and what we have in place now.
I think that was really well
that's
said.
a fantastic idea, Lisa.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, I have a comment as well. Thanks, Lisa, for that suggestion. So as going back to Bill's point, and I see Rich, I will call on you in just a second. I think there's kind of two issues. It's one, getting a snapshot of the investment the district is making in arts education, visual and performing arts as a whole, and being able to see that when we do this presentation, because it makes sense to be looking at everything and not kind of a specific segment that involves like a certain type of training and a certain time, like TOSA time, and just seeing everything. So I think it's like the snapshot of being able to get the accurate picture to the board and for all of our benefit, because I think it's helpful when we all have that information. And then the other part of it is more investment, I think, is what I'm hearing from Bill, is like, in addition to seeing what's actually happening, putting more into it. Okay. So from the needs assessment perspective, and kind of what I'm visualizing, and I don't know if this is what you're thinking, Lisa, or if this is helpful, but I know that we're doing some work with systems and kind of streamlining things. And I'm wondering if this is one of those areas where that will get, maybe that's one of the areas we can target. And I think that's an item that's coming up, is kind of building out processes. Jeremy, am I right with that, Studer? That is kind of something that
That's the concept. Yes, it's part of
Okay.
our systems of communication. Yes.
So maybe this is, if that covers this issue that we're seeing, where we're kind of not seeing the full picture, maybe that can be one of the things that we focus on kind of earlier on with that process that we're implementing, or that we'll be voting on and are potentially implementing.
And if I could just say to the board, what we have done, I have read the strategic plan. And so what we have done is try to follow that strategic plan and make sure that we are putting the expenditures where they were planned for in the appropriate year.
And I also want to, okay, I need to call on Rich. Sorry, Rich. I want to just thank you, Elizabeth, because you're amazing. And, we feel lucky to have you in our district, and it comes through every time we hear a report from you. We see all that you're doing, and we even hear from you throughout the year. So we just want to take a moment to appreciate what you've done. And I will call on Rich. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Elizabeth, yeah, thank you. Actually, your presentation, I clicked a couple lights in my head for some thoughts that I don't know that I ever, well, they fell into the right boxes, I guess. One of them is on the Windsor Wheel, the VAPA, the $1,500 a year. Diana, I was thinking that, this would be something that would really, I think, would fit in well, excuse me, with the We Foundation, that if it became maybe some sort of an annual type thing that you guys just sponsored, but that's, if you could maybe bring it back to your board and say, hey, this would be something that we just every year, this is one of the things, of the many things that we do. This might be just one of the hallmark things that we're going to do. I know that with our sports stuff, we just say, hey, look, like this trip we just took the kids up to Reno. It's something we've done for like 12 or 13 years. It's a foundational thing that helps the kids, and we've just done it every year except for last year, of course. But this might be something that the We Foundation actually wants to plug in and say, this is one thing. It's just a suggestion. It was just something that I thought in my mind. Circling back around, I think Bill's comment earlier about this is all we're putting in, the discussion that came out of it is that we really don't have, or I don't have, a total investment from our school district into all of the things that go into the arts. Now, I would like to hopefully down the road, sooner than later, have our board meet, have a discussion about what does VAPA mean to them? What does VAPA mean to our town and our school district? To me personally, I am more interested in the music side of it. I'm somewhat interested in the dance side of it because I have connections to those things personally. The art side of it, I struggle with the stick man on any kind of drawing of some sort. And even that's kind of not so good. But I'm looking at a lot of the things that we're doing, and I see in the younger ages, it appears as that we're going more towards the art, more towards drawing, painting, those types of things. And I don't know that I want to put resources in that area as much. So if we did like a pie chart, for me, I'd have a bigger portion of our district's total funds, however we divide it, going more towards music. I'd have a lesser amount going towards maybe performing arts, and then even a lesser amount more to the arts. I don't know if that's a wise choice. I don't know if one builds on top of the other, that if the early on kids, if they're learning how to draw on those things, if it stimulates more growth into the other. So these are some questions that all this is kind of stirred up in my mind of, I assumed that some of this was already happening in the younger grades, more in the music. I'm now beginning to think that maybe I was in error of thinking that way. So I want to have that discussion down the road but I first need to say, what are we putting as an example? If we're spending $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 at the 6th through 12th grade level towards music, right? then we need to be salt in the mind, so to speak, in the younger kids. I get that. So what is that proportion? What is that amount? But I get the feeling we're doing more. So I don't know the answer to that, but I want to look at that and find out more, because most of you guys know I want a marching band. I'm trying to figure out how to get a couple of my friends to donate some money. I'm looking for a couple of colleges right now that have great marching bands that we could get to come to our high school, and in the middle of one of our football games, put on a nice big college level marching band event. And I want to do that so that way I can stoke some vision in a whole bunch of parents and other people in their mind of, hey, wow, there is no reason our school district couldn't have something like this as well. And there's nothing better than to see it in your own hometown than to see it and visualize it. So, I'm kind of trying to figure out how to make something like that happen. But again, thank you for this. This, I think, has really opened up for me some, I don't know if deficiencies are the right word, but something where we have to have a little bit of a deeper dive and look at this thing holistically from K to 12 and how we managing our resources and what are those resources. 'Cause I have a feeling we're spending a lot of money already that's not getting credited.
Yeah, definitely.
But I want to know what that is. So then that way we can all agree on if we're doing a good job or where we need to do a better job.
And I think that's one of the benefits, I think, with the grant that we've just received, to have the more TOSA time. That will allow me to either gather information or work with others and work with Lisa to really make that picture. That's actually something I'm glad you guys are seeing that, because it's what I've been feeling. So thank you.
Well,
I do have a comment as well.
Thanks.
Rich, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Well, yeah, I mean, only because I'm doing this in my own company right now, I'm kind of drilling down deeper, and I don't know if our accounting software has the ability to do it, because we have categories, classes, subclasses. If we can actually have a thing where we have something that might be in technology and it's coming out of the technology budget, but we can also subclass it to a VAPA type of thing. So when we say, I can say, I can say to whoever Lois's replacement is, but I'd love to say to Lois, what is our district's total investment right now in VAPA type oriented projects? We can't do that right now. I don't know if our software would even allow us to do that down the road. It might be something we're going to have to drill a little bit and get budget numbers, but I think it's more than people think it is. And so once we really know what those real numbers are, then we can go from there. But I think we're spending more money than we think.
Okay, so I did have one more comment, and that is that, I do want to say I so appreciate all of the hard work that has gone into this program, just because we did have to quickly pivot to an online environment. And I know at Sonoma State, we had the identical issue for performing arts students, which was, how do you organize a band, for example, if you're all online, like how do you all, practice, right? So I totally get that. I do want to say that, however, what's missing for me is that I don't see the larger vision right now. I don't see what the objectives are. Because, for example, it's one thing to say, I want to connect X number of students with the arts, right? And they're all sort of getting exposed to the arts. And it's a different thing to sort of look at more of the more qualitative objectives. So, for example, it is our goal to have X number of performances, and students will have, an intermediate level, right, of performance level. For example, and really look at, what are our objectives? What is this money funding besides, connecting students with the arts? So I feel like there needs to be more of those types of elements in the strategic plan, as far as what is the longer range vision for all of the arts, because, to be honest, I'm very excited and passionate about all of the arts. I love them all. So I just really want to see what's that long-term vision in the strategic plan.
Elizabeth, I have one question for the immediate summer. When is the iAspire Summit this summer?
It is not.
Okay.
What happened with iAspire for this summer was we pitched it to teachers both in Windsor and Sonoma County, and everybody said not it when it comes to summer professional development.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it.
No, so what we are looking for is we are currently looking at what we can do in the fall. And so what I just went over, we were just discussing earlier this week to do, actually, I can take 2 seconds and grab my notes. I can tell you exactly what I wrote down. We're looking to do 3 days in the fall. And that is 1 day online. And that includes the modules that we, during the initial iAspire development process, there's 40 hours of online modules. So we're going to adapt some of that for an online development for teachers. Then we're going to do 1 day of in-person training, and then a 3rd day of sharing and reflecting about what's happened in classrooms so far based on what teachers have brought to their classrooms from the trainings. And that 3rd day is probably going to be October 2nd is what we're looking at.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
And I saw Pete's hand. Oh, Rich, do you want to go first?
Just real quick, Elizabeth, just put this in your memory bank and think about this. What is it going to take for us to get our drum corps and the band members that we have to our football games and playing something?
That's a Steve Hoffman question too.
Well, no, nope. I'm throwing it to you, and then let it dissipate out in the ether there. But what is it going to take? I mean, there have been some years we've had some, and some years we've had less. But we need think about that. What can we do to get that? The more we get, the more we'll get more of it.
So I can tell you 2 things that are going to help us get there. The first thing is during the pandemic, percussion was the most successful thing that we did in distance learning. It was the most accessible. It was the thing that the kids loved the most. The high school drum line was probably some of our most dedicated kids this year. They on their own took time to meet socially distanced so they could perform together. And then additionally at the middle school and elementary levels, we have initiated bucket drumming. So students are learning percussion and learning how to hold drumsticks and the different parts of a drum and drum cadences. And then on top of that, I do have one thing that's really exciting, is the Music for Schools through Santa Rosa Symphony has given us, pledged to us to provide instruments for all of any 5th grader that wants to learn a band instrument at Brooks next year. So I'm going to be piloting band at Brooks next year. So a lot of good things. We're going to start getting those band stuff going, getting students playing instruments and getting them excited. So Manal, you were saying, like, what's the overall vision? It was at first just exposing kids, getting it there. Next is, what do we do with it? How do we get students to feel engaged and then see what the next vision is? And so I really agree with that. And I actually I like the idea of looking to, how would I say that? Looking to revise our vision based on where we are. And I think that's really, really important. And then also one thing, Rich, check out Sacramento State. They have a really great marching program, and their band director is also a high school and middle school band director. So he might be really interested.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So basically, and you did say that the drummers are the best of all of them, right? That's what I thought I heard, and you're the best.
I think also something I would be excited about is if, these kids were not just learning a basic level of skill, but for example, being exposed to industry professionals in the art of their choice. Something like that. I think that, we could be a little bit more ambitious with the strategic plan.
We've started talking about that to some extent, especially because a few of our current teachers are also industry professionals. So trying to start from there and then also work within their networks, which I think would be really important.
So I'm going to call on Pete because I know he's been trying to speak, and then I'm going to call on Lisa after because she has a hand up. Let's go ahead.
Yes, so I would say we actually have two arts cores at the high school. We have Nueva and Arate. And Arate does the video production. For example, a couple of years ago when Nueva did a performance, we turned it into a video production. We've done that with culinary. We've put stuff on YouTube and all that. We do work with industry professionals, as does Nueva, right? For a senior project, we bring them in. So some of that is happening. We're through California Partnership Academy. So that's where our funding is coming from. But tightening up that vision of K through 12 and especially 7 through or 6 through 12, I think would be important.
Lisa?
Thank you. I don't want to belabor this, and I know we need to wrap up this item, but I just wanted to remind the board of one other piece of information that was shared earlier this year as well. And it's in direct relation to what you may not see necessarily as VAPA, but yet it will be. And that is your recent approval of the communications person that we're going to be hiring. So if you'll recall, in the LCAP survey this year, 29% of parents surveyed said it was not applicable when they were asked that if the school's art program was meeting their child's needs. 25%, 1 in 4 parents weren't sure. They didn't know. They don't know. And so it's a PR thing for us too, in an education piece, much like the CCI indicator. And then students in 5th through 12th grade, 30% of them responded that it wasn't applicable to them. And 27% said they didn't know. So it really kind of boils down to an education piece that we need to get better at. And, it goes back to that. We've been told at how many board meetings by parents, if you're not out there telling people what's going on, how are they supposed to know? So we need to do a better job of communicating what we are doing and the successful things that are in place. So there, I said it, that's all.
I look forward to collaborating with that person.
President Stephanie, since I started, I appreciate greatly that my tirade to begin got us talking very broadly about this. Rich, we are spending well up north of $1 million a year. When you look at these various ways, as Pete said, there's 2 cores. It's not VAPA, but it's VAPA programs and VAPA experiences. So I really look forward that we take the deeper dive. Thank you very much for your thing. And just like we practiced, Elizabeth, that went well. So
yes,
thanks a lot, guys.
Appreciate the approach. All right. And we'll move on to our next item. It was actually a great discussion. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Which is Brian Williams. But right before we get to this item, I am going to make an announcement that I was supposed to make in my board update, which is that we have a new student board member starting with us in August, Kai Heflin. Very excited to welcome him on board. He's not here with us yet, but I did want to make that announcement. Pretend we're in item 3.5, I think, and we'll be seeing him soon. He's a Windsor High School student.
Steph, is he a rising junior?
I was just checking to see if I could find that out. I am not sure. I think he is, but I'm not sure.
All right, thank you.
And now I will turn it over to the one and only Brian Williams to talk about math. And he's muted.
They got me. Okay. Can everyone see the presentation? Okay. Good evening, Board President, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Decker, and Cabinet. Thank you for this opportunity. So this is actually a required report to be given to the Board of Trustees every single year. And this is to address the high school math impact and barriers. So this is meant to be an interactive presentation. So if you have any questions or comments on any of the slides, feel free to jump in. So you should have received a PDF of this information ahead of time. And if you looked at it, you'll see that we have kind of a series of slides that kind of give data and statistics, and then we'll have an opportunity to talk about the impact and barriers of those statistics. All right, here we go. So you'll see this is the 2021 enrollment by grade, And then on the bottom of that graph, it shows each of the different courses, and then it shows color-coded what grade level is predominantly enrolled in those courses. And one of the things that you'll see as you look at that slide is that 92% of all Windsor High School students are enrolled in math. So that's 94% of juniors, 72% of seniors. Now, looking at the statistics, you might think, well, that's fantastic. Our A through G requirements must be, fully met because we have students who are continuing on doing 3 and 4 years of math. Unfortunately, the high percentages of juniors and seniors that are enrolled in math doesn't mean that they're taking and pursuing Math 3, Trig, Pre-Calc, AP Calc, AP Stats. It reflects the high percentage of students who have to repeat Math 1 and Math 2 to meet the graduation requirement. And kind of a note that I want to make about what happens when a student has to repeat a math course. When we receive funding for a student, we receive funding for them to attend that course and for one time. And what happens is that if they have to repeat that course, we do not receive additional funding for that course, which means we have to use supplemental funding to add more FTE in order for those students to take up another seat. So if you think about in terms of if you have a high failure rate in integrated 1, those students have to retake that course and before they can move on to integrated 2, then we have to offer more sections of integrated 1, which then costs the district more money in terms of having to hire additional teachers. So this is a major issue, not just for Windsor High School, but it's in terms of the financial impact on the district. Another statistic looking at in terms of the enrollment by ethnicity. So our two main subgroups are our Latinx population and our white population. And you'll see that you have 56% of in integrated 1 for our Latinx population and 35% in integrated 1 for our white population. Now we're roughly about 50-50 in terms of our overall population. So with that 56%, what you're actually seeing is an inflation of those numbers because of a high failure rate. And I have those exact numbers on an additional slide. What you will also see is that despite the fact that we're roughly 50-50 between our Latinx population and our white population, that as we go from integrated 1 to Math 2 to integrated Math 3, that you'll start to see that it's never actually gets to that 50 percentage. And then as Math 3, which most students should be taking in a junior year, is only 37% of the population, of the Latinx population, that is actually enrolled in that course. And then getting into our D and F percentages. Now I wanted to pull 3 years of data for this one to show you that the DF rate that we saw in fall of 2020 was not a result of COVID. If we look at the 3 years of fall 2018, 19, and 20, you will see that in integrated 1, we had a DF percentage of 47% in 2018, 30% in 2019, and 40% in 2020. And I'll just remind the board that each one of those students has to retake that course again. So when you have between almost half of your population having to retake that course, it really impacts their ability to access higher levels of mathematics later on in their high school career. And then another startling statistic is looking at the DF percentage by ethnicity. You'll see that in Math 1, 72% of the D and Fs are made up of our Latinx population, while 28% is made up of our white students. And in Math 2, 63% is our Latinx students and 37% is our white students. So knowing that 48% of students attending Windsor High School identify as Hispanic or Latinx, 46% of students attending Windsor High School identify as white. So just based on our analysis of this, there's a disproportionate number of Hispanic Latinx students enrolled in Math 1 and a disproportionate number of white students enrolled in Math 2 and Math 3. And this is due to the high failure rate in Math 1, particularly with our Hispanic Latinx students, which causes them to repeat the course and inflates our enrollment numbers. So that impact creates a barrier, and that's what the board language actually requires for me to report on, are the barriers. So the high failure rate in Math 1 and Math 2, it impacts the student's ability to access Math 3, which is a requirement for meeting the A through G. It's recommended for A through G. So only 37% of our students who identify as Hispanic or Latinx make it to that level, even though they represent 48% of the population. And then the high failure rate by Hispanic Latinx students in math, which is at 72%, is disproportionate to the representation of the total population, which is at 48%.
Could I ask a question, Brian?
Yes.
Or make a comment? So you've come from the middle school, and we know you're familiar with the program there. Is it possible, or do you think it's possible, to use the student scores from the middle school and teacher recommendations and grades in the past and things like that, and then when a student arrives at the high school, if they've struggled, can they automatically be placed in a math support and a Math 1 class? Would that benefit those kids so they don't have to potentially do a repeat? I know we have an 8-period possibility, so there's room to do that, but can we officially mandate a student to do that, or is it a parental approval? What do you think on that idea?
So there's already board language that mandates that. There is specific language in the board policy that identifies what it takes to move on to Math 1. And so it's a Berkeley score, it's student performance, and it's teacher recommendation. And so that's exactly what we did. So one of the things that we did is we added another course available to students at Windsor High School, and that's what we're going to be submitting for board approval. It's already an approved course. We've been using it at Windsor Middle School. It's pre-Math 1. It's basically Math 8. So what we're doing is enrolling students in that course if they didn't meet the criteria set forth in board policy for being able to be successful in Math 1. And so what we'll be able to do is give them a more structured, supportive environment to prepare them for Math 1, which they can then take in 10th grade. So previously, we would have tried either putting them in Math 1, they failed it, we would have given them Math 1 again, or we would have tried putting them in Math 1A, giving them half of the Math 1 curriculum, and then in sophomore, giving them Math 1B, and then taking them take 2 years. So every single one of those solutions requires basically 2 years to get the Math 1 requirement done. The solution that I'm proposing with pre-Math 1 actually meets California's graduation requirement, which says that you have to have 2 years of math, with the highest year being equivalent to Math 1. So if this board ever decides to align Windsor High School's graduation requirements with California's graduation requirements, we actually could have some students, not the students who are going for A through G, not the students who are planning on taking Math 3 or AP Stats, but some students who are struggling through the process and having to take math multiple times every single year, so they're still a senior taking Math 2. If we align the requirements with California, then they would actually be able to take pre-Math 1 as a 9th grader, Math 1 as a sophomore, and then meet the requirement, and then choose to be able to go on to Math 2 or Math 3 and still be able to meet that recommended Math 3 course by their senior year if they decide they want to get the A through G requirements. That answer your question?
I was thinking a little differently, but that's a good plan. I think that has good potential. I was just thinking, since we have extra periods available on our A-B schedule, that if a student had Math 1 on A day, then on the B day, they could have a Math 1 support, a smaller section, maybe with a teacher that might be the same, or maybe a different teacher, to reinforce and to review the materials to help them be successful in Math 1. which would then down the line give them the opportunity to get to those higher level classes if they did find some kind of spark that made them get past that first class.
So, and that's bullet point number 2. So we're offering those Math 1 support classes also. So in addition to the pre-Math 1 option, we're also, we've added in, we're continuing with having a Math 1 support class. The model that we do is that the teacher maintains the same students, but then has them in smaller groups for additional time. And then next year, because we knew that there was a 60% failure rate in Math 2 coming out of COVID, we actually added sections of math support to Math 2, which I don't believe that we've had to do before, but we'll be offering that next year as well. So basically what we're doing is trying everything in order to mitigate the impact of COVID, as well as the impact of, this has been an issue for multiple years in terms of the DNF rate. And then the last piece is Director Saxton is leading us through the process of equity grading and making sure that our grading practices reflect our beliefs about equity and access. And so it's not an issue of like homework completion that's keeping a student from passing. We're actually focusing on proficiency and competency. So that's another thing that we're doing, moving forward with. And then working on the identification of those key standards, not just through 9-12, but then all the way down to 6th grade, and then making sure that we're working in that progression, because there was lots of conversations at the middle school about why a student would pass math in the 8th grade and then fail math in the 9th grade. And so kind of the 2 areas that we focused on was that there's big differences in the way we grade at 8th versus 9th, and there's big differences in terms of the emphasis that we're putting on particular standards. So this just identifies kind of the course and sequence. It's important to demonstrate that with the new course, seniors still have access to Math 3. If they choose, juniors still have access to Math 2. And so academic pathway 1 is if they start with that pre-Math 1. Pathway 2 is the traditional pathway, is where they start with Math 1. And then pathway number 3, or is our accelerated pathway, is for those students that took Math 1 either at the middle school or Cali, that they have the ability to start with Math 2 and then progress into Math 3, and then they have a lot of options in their junior and senior year. So a big piece that we're going to have that we're looking at is our metrics for success. So kind of my goal is to be able to look at the single plan for student achievement that the high school has and make sure that it's aligned with the LCAP, and then also look at our WASC work and make sure that it's aligned with the LCAP as well, so that the board goals, the LCAP, the WASC goals, and the school plan all kind of work together, and they're not competing for resources. So we're looking to reduce the DNF rate in Math 1 and Math 2 by 10% each year for the next 3 years, to go from 40%. So by 2023, when we're doing our mid-cycle review for WASC, that we're only looking at about a 10% DNF rate for Math 1. We would like to see equal representation in Math 2 and Math 3 based on ethnicity. And then our LCAP goal is, back in fall of 2020, 63% of students in Math 1 scored at 70% or higher on the fall baseline assessment. We have a goal of getting it to 83% of students in Math 1 scoring 70% or higher on the fall baseline in that 3 years. So that's what I have for the presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
I see Rich has his hand up. You're muted though, but go ahead. And then Malinali after.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Brian. That was a good presentation. I like the focus and the direction that we're heading. I'd like to, I'm not sure if, I think we're heading this way, but on the math support classes, if with the build program, I think the build program is going to be a hands-on way to help a lot of kids. I was one of them who can actually put math and something tangible together to make something that they can understand better. I know that I would not have done very well the way some of our integrated math programs are right now as a kid growing up. My dad had great tutors for me, and I still wasn't until I was about a junior, it just didn't click. And so I appreciate that we're looking at every option in every way that will help the different kids. But I think the math program, as we continue to go down that road and integrate the two together, I think that we will see better results where the kids understand things by associating things together with the math. I had a question. I want to talk a little bit more about the implementation of standards-based grading to help identify levels of competency and mitigate toxic grading practices. I need a little bit more help with that one. I think I understand what you're saying, but maybe you or Lisa could explain a little that again of what has been toxic in the past.
So one of the things that you could think about in terms of if you are adding in the concept of effort into a grade, that's not a reflection of competency, that's a reflection of effort. So oftentimes what happens is when you look at a grade, it's a collection of the percent of work completed accurately. So a student could absolutely demonstrate that they have full mastery, but because of missing assignments would still fail a course. So we're looking at ways of being able to identify, does the student have competency or mastery of the content, and then being able to communicate that to families that that's the level that they're at, regardless of the percent of work that they completed. So the trick is to be able to communicate those work habits, which are absolutely essential for creating a workforce going forward, is that you have those good work habits and that you're on time and you'll be able to show that you can plan and do the work you need to. But then also we have to be able to assess that they're actually being able to demonstrate the skill. So K5 has already done this work and already has a standards-based report card. So what we're looking at doing is being able to look at having a standards-based kind of grading practices 6 through 12, which really focuses on the student's abilities versus basically in terms of a collection of assignments that all somehow add up to a score.
Okay, thank you. Okay, just I want to pause for at that point. One, I on one hand, I totally appreciate that. I remember I had one kid that wrestled for me, super bright kid, did not want to do his homework, just wouldn't do it. He goes, "Why do I need to do homework? I get A's on the tests." And I go, "Because you're supposed to." And he goes, "But I don't want to do it." And so he wasn't getting very good grades because he's missing every math assignment that he was supposed to get, but he was literally getting A's on the tests. So I guess what I'm wondering is there an integrated way of doing this? Whereas, let's say you've got a kid, I'm not going to mention his name, but this one particular kid, and they get A's on the test. They don't have to do their homework. Well, they do their homework, but they just, for whatever reason, they don't have to, or they're not going to, but they get A's on the test. They are obviously meeting the goal of mastering the subject. So they would get an A. But what about other kids that maybe, I'll use me, they have to get all their homework assignments turned in, every single one of them, to balance out their test scores because maybe they're not good at taking tests. Maybe they freeze up when the test comes along. They're not, so, how do the kids that are hard workers, but aren't, they're not the 500 watt bulb in that class. How do those kids also get, I'm not even sure how to, hopefully my thoughts coming across.
And so Rich, that's why giving multiple opportunities to take an assessment is important. And so if a student takes the assessment, but maybe doesn't do well, giving them the opportunity to be able to take it again, but then saying, well, if you're going to take this again, you have to do something to demonstrate that the results are going to be different. Like show me your homework, show me your practice. And so for that student who needs to have additional support, we can build that into our process of being able to let them take a test over again with no penalty other than being able to have some kind of intervention between the tests. And the other way, Rich, is looking at creating multiple measures for assessment. So that student might not be able to sit down and fill out, an essay to convey the information, but maybe they could tell it to you. And maybe you could see that, okay, they understand what they're talking about, but they just can't communicate it in writing. And if the assessment is about the content and not about the writing, then you can still give them that competency and proficiency without having to grade their writing. Now, if the assessment's about the writing, well, of course they have to write. So this is a very long, multi-year conversation about being able to do this. And we're just introducing this to teachers. But we have a pretty strong contingency of teachers who are ready to move forward because of what they learned during COVID. Many teachers really got to an understanding of what is essential for understanding and how to assess that piece. And so they're really ready to move forward, and we want to be able to provide that professional development because they asked for it.
And ultimately, Rich, it's a conversation of what does a grade mean, right? I mean, that's what we're really discussing. What does a grade mean? What does A mean? It should be reflective of a student learning.
Sure.
Is simply completing work and not learning anything, right? So that's the discussion.
No, anything that's gonna, I like this. This is progressing towards, I think, the goal that we're all looking for, which is our kids continuing to grow and develop and get better educated, and so they can do better.
So I'll comment. I really like that you're tackling the issue from a bunch of different angles. I think it does kind of make sense to throw the kitchen sink in this year and just kind of see what works. I mean, you have very ambitious goals. So it'll be interesting to see when I imagine you're coming back next year to report on kind of where you stand with regard to those targets. And I think it's really interesting to explore grading. I mean, the fact that there's a noticeable shift in grades in math between middle school and high school is an indicator that something is different and that there's some exploring and information gathering that definitely at the very least needs to be happening so I think that there's a lot to uncover. And I think you're definitely the right person to do it because you were at the middle school until now. So you can come with the full experience of having been there and know exactly what was happening. So very interested to hear how it goes, and maybe we can be kept in the loop a little bit throughout the year. It doesn't have to be a big presentation like this, but we'd love updates on kind of how things are going, because I know, math is very important, but it's also something that's very challenging to teach equitably and to make sure that students have meaningful access to it for a bunch of different reasons.
Right.
So,
You're absolutely right. Yes, and I also did have a comment. I first do want to say thank you so much for all of that information in the presentation. That was really eye-opening. And I do want to speak to this equity aspect of this situation because, from a personal experience, when I was in high school, math was really challenging for me. And I think if somebody would have asked me in the moment, why is math so challenging? I could have told you exactly why. And I think sometimes students are their own best self-assessment tool. So I think asking them, what are your challenges? What do you need to be able to thrive in math? So at the time, what was happening with me is that, neither one of my parents graduated from high school. So when I came home with my homework and I had a question, I couldn't go to my parents. So that was definitely a challenge for me. So what I ended up having to do is my mom would drive me to the SRJC to see a tutor at the SRJC, and that's how I was able to survive math. But for me, I would have told you in 2 seconds, my issue is I just can't get help at home and I have to seek it elsewhere. So that's number one. The second thing that happens too in regard to equity is that there are sometimes, unfortunately, biases in perception of what makes college material in the students. So the other thing that happened is also when I was in high school, I was told over and over that I was not college material. And I was told that because I was told, number one, like you're not smart enough. And also your parents, are agricultural workers. How will they afford college? And I heard this story over and over throughout high school. And finally, one day it came to a point where my mom, in her broken English, had to go and speak to all of my teachers and say, please stop saying that to my child. You know, you're wrong. And thank God I ended up getting into really, really good schools, but it's only because of challenging the perceptions and of understanding, you know, in my own self-assessment where the problems were. So I do recommend, you know, asking the students themselves, you know, what are your challenges? What do you need in the way of support to thrive in math? Because I do think that they know, they must know.
Thank you. And I think one of the exciting ideas that might come out of the WE Foundation proposal is our ability to pay other students in order to provide that tutoring. You know, because that might be, if those resources could be available in a library after school, then that might be kind of that bridge for a student who's not going to go ask their teacher for additional help. So I think looking at the ability to provide that support, next year we're going to have to negotiate a new bell schedule, and that's not just because I'm Brian and I change the bell schedule everywhere I go, because the state law actually requires us to move the start time from 8 to 8:30. So we're going to have to reimagine what the bell schedule looks like at Windsor High School, and then think about, in terms of, as we do that and we have that lens of equity and access, how do we make sure that we build into the day opportunities for support? And I think that's the major piece that we have to focus on going forward, is we can collect all of this data about students' competency and proficiency, but once we have that data, what are we going to do with it? And I think that's the major piece that we have to address. And if we can do that, then I can work on meeting these very ambitious goals of being able to get to the point where students have free access to be able to take the multiple years of math and keep going every single year, to make sure that they have those opportunities, you know, to go to college if they choose.
If I could throw one thing out there real quick, last thing on this, only because I want to pay a little tribute to it. There used to be a teacher at the high school years ago, Mr. Ramirez, I believe is his name. And I think he was there when you were going to school, Stephanie, I think. He was awesome. The guy worked so hard, and he was at school before school started, and he would help kids. He was at school after school helping kids. He was Hispanic, and a lot of the Hispanic kids were in his classroom all the time at breaks, before school, after school. And he was working with them. And I guess, I don't know if I'm saying it the right way, but when we are looking for math teachers, you know, if we've got such a big group of folks that are challenged in that area that are Hispanic, you know, if we could really pay a focus to advertising and looking to maybe get some math teachers that are Hispanic, that might help too. Maybe some of the students would feel more comfortable going and asking for help from someone who is Hispanic. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm throwing out anything. I just know that I remember, because Mr. Ramirez's class was a little bit, I could see the classroom door from where the wrestling room was, and there were kids always going in and out of there. And so when we're looking at all the different solutions, that might be one of them as well that we can think about as well when we're looking for more teachers. So anyhow, he was a really good teacher, had a great big heart. He was smart as a whip. So anyhow, just something to throw out there as well.
Yeah, and he was Eric Heitz's teacher in 1985, and my teacher a little bit later. Yeah, but he built community in his classroom and was very welcoming. And I think you're saying something that we talk about a lot on the board, which is having a faculty that reflects our student population and really working to just have a teaching staff that reflects our community of students kind of proportionately, if that's possible to do. I know it's something that we try to do. And I think you're right that like just seeing someone, even if they're not your teacher, knowing that someone from your, I don't know, from your same background or someone you feel an affinity with is excelling in an area, I think that is impactful to students. I think it's impactful to anyone to feel that connection and have a personal stake in in anything really. So thanks,
Just-
Rich.
And
Appreciate
just
it.
to go full circle with this, I'll say is we'll take this opportunity to welcome our new math teacher, Brenda Rodriguez, who is fully credentialed and fully bilingual math teacher who came, who we were very concerned we were not going to be able to find anyone to fill this position. And out of nowhere, she comes in. Why? Because her student liked our arts programs, her child, who had a high school student. So actually, we were able to get that person through our arts program, because he wants to be a theater major, and that's his goal and passion in life. And so that was a program that we offered. It's, one of the best in the county and possibly, the best, in Northern California. And so that was actually a draw for them to come to our community, which then allowed us to have a really fantastic math teacher, who will be in this community.
Awesome. Jeremy, were you going to say something? Oh, the little box went around your screen. So
Sometimes the cars go by and they're loud
Yeah.
enough to cause it to happen.
yeah, we have thin walls in our district. We put all our resources into our students. Okay, well, thank you very much, Brian. I don't think we have any more comments, so we'll move on to the next item. We really appreciate your presentation and sticking around to answer questions. We will move on to section 6, discussion action. Our first item is consideration of approval of resolution number 2021-25, and I will turn this over to Lois Standring. Very exciting
Hello,
to see
everyone.
you.
Hi. This is going to be the fastest item tonight. This is compliance. The county requires it so that we can close our books properly. We bring it every June. So I would appreciate very much if you would approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-25.
I'll second it. I think I'll second it with discussion.
Okay, and I think there was one comment on this item. I think there might be a typo in the second to last sentence about, I think it just needs to be replaced with Windsor Unified School District.
It just says ABC, Lois. I think we
Oh.
just forgot to put it.
Oh, that's interesting. It's the one we used last year. Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
I guess we weren't as attentive last year, but
Right.
with that,
Thank you.
I will take a vote, and with that change,
I did have one. What is the amount that we're transferring over?
It could be that there's nothing. It just depends as the books close. If there's a problem with the accounts, they need to be able to make the adjustment.
Got it. Okay.
okay,
This is
so,
a resolution.
As a resolution, I believe we need a roll call.
oh, we do need a roll call. Thank you.
Stephanie Ahmad,
Yes.
Rich Carnation,
Yes.
Bill Adams,
Yes.
Eric Hates,
Yes?
Malinali Lopez.
Yes.
Right, the resolution passes 5-0. We'll move on
Thank
to
you.
items. You're welcome. We'll move on to item 6.2, consideration of approval of the Windsor Unified School District Local Control Accountability Plan and the local performance indicator self-reflection. I'll turn it over to Lisa Saxon.
Thanks, Stephanie. So we went through the majority of the meat and potatoes, as it were, on the 17th at our meeting. So tonight is that next formal step. Hoping that the board was able to preview the new template and see how the LCAP rolls out this round after a year of incorporating board priorities, stakeholder priorities, and getting it into a workable plan that seems like the next right direction for us. Some of it is work that we'll continue doing, that we've been doing, and some of it is a slightly new direction. With regard to the reflection on the local priorities, you may remember that they're changing this constantly. We used to do a report October, November of the year and report out on these 5 required areas that are the local indicator LCAP metrics. And now there's a template and they've asked us just for this year to cycle it with our LCAP. So again, those items are things like teacher assignments, access to instructional materials, a broad course of study, facilities being clean, safe, and functional, implementation of the Common Core, parent and family engagement, and school climate, the ways in which we are creating school safety and connectedness for our students. So if there are not any questions, that's what I have for you this evening. Again, because we spent the majority of our time at the last meeting going through the particulars.
Any questions? Bill?
Yeah, I was hiking up at 8,000 feet 2 weeks ago, but thank you, Lisa. I really like this format. I think it gets easier and easier to digest in the way that it's put together. I just wanted to point out, sort of apropos to some of the things we were discussing under VAPA, in the total expenditure tables, which I think are brilliant because you can go right to 2 or 3 pages. On page 43 of 59 is a place, for example, as we look towards next year, it lists 24 million in certificated salaries, but in other categories, we list 773,000 for social emotional learning counselors, 252,000 for AVID, 284,000 for bilingual community liaison. So I think if we had VAPA related staff or CTE related staff, for example, we could carve those further out of that $24 million. So we're already starting to do it. It doesn't cost any more money. It's just a different way to organize it. But I really like the fact that there's a one-stop shop and well done after a year break. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, thank you. Then I will take a motion.
I will make motion to approve the Windsor Unified School District 2021 through 24 Local Control Accountability Plan.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I don't think so. That's 5-0 in favor. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and now next item is 6.3, which is the consideration of the approval of the Windsor Unified School District proposed budget for 2020 to 2021. This item will again be presented by Lois Standring.
Okay, so this is my last board meeting with you guys. Kind of interesting feeling, but I want you to remember me. So I have a little presentation, and it's going to be the best of my look at the budget. We went over the basics last week, and the only difference 2 weeks ago, the only difference that happened in those 2 weeks is we budgeted the specifics of supplemental funding. That's always too much to do as we rush up to that first public hearing. So that was worked on over the last 2 weeks, but it doesn't change the basic budget. So let me share screen. Okay, let's see. Okay, this won't take very long. It's pretty short. I just want to give you a little bit of a different perspective, although the other side of this is it's the same perspective I've been talking about for 7 years. So it's my farewell to Windsor, or to the board, I should say. So it's in a question and answer format, and it's some pretty simple questions, but it outlines some numbers that lead up to a conclusion. And so the question is, does the budget include increased costs for pension? Well, of course it does. And for Windsor, that for next year is a total of $404,000. It shows here the increased percentages. And I did a quick glance at the finally approved budget. And as far as I could see, there was not any additional pension relief. I don't know if anyone else has looked at it and found that item, but it did not look to me as though that the legislature came through with extra relief for the pension. So that was sad news for me. And then does the budget include the cost of step and column changes? Of course it does. And in Windsor, that is $218,000 for certificated and $39,000 for classified. That's 1 year. Does the budget include any increases for the cost of health benefits? Well, it happens to, and that assumes a 5% increase, which for this year, it's $269,206. And then we have an additional mandated increase this year. Unemployment insurance went up. And this was an interesting one. We pay in, school districts pay into the school employees fund. So it's a little bit different than the rest of the world as far as unemployment tax. And payments are usually about $40 million a year. That's pretty standard. Well, in 1920, the amount that went out was $237 million. So you can see that was a huge increase. And with the formula that they have a formula for setting the rate. So they were saying our rate would be 1.23%. And this was an increase from 0.05%. So it meant an additional $301,000 for Windsor. Luckily, the legislature stepped in supporting a reduction down to 0.50. So we're saving 178,000. So I did this, I should have done it differently, but whatever the difference between 301 and 178, so that's about $120,000 that we'll be spending instead of, I think normally we spend about 12, 20, maybe $20,000 on unemployment. So that's still a bit. And then we have the super COLA. And that's something this year of 5.07%, which when you look at what that means in additional revenue, we get quite a bonus this year because for Windsor, there's a COLA, but then we always have to offset it with declining enrollment. For 21-22, we don't have to because we're still hold harmless. We get to use that number from hold harmless. So this is a unique opportunity where we see the effect of a COLA, just straight COLA on us. And it's $1.4 million, which is a nice sum of money. But then we look at all the things that I just went through, and here they are totaled. And actually the extra money we end up with is $427,000. Now that is an extra amount. That's good. That's unusual for Windsor. And it will change. And the reason it will change, again, go back to being our expenses more than our extra revenue, is that 5.07 won't happen again. That extra money will be more like anywhere from 1.5% to 2.5%, maybe. That's what they're looking at in the future. So it's cut in half. And yes, unemployment hopefully won't be there, but the other three will be. And the other thing is we'll also be facing declining enrollment again, unless some of the plans work to reverse that. But at least in the next couple of years, there probably won't be a big change. So I think my point is this is a special year. There is some extra money in the budget for this 1 year, but that's not going to continue unless something else happens to change revenue, hopefully more students. So did that make sense as far as the COLA versus declining enrollment and why this is such a special year?
So if I might, Lois, so the 5.07 comes in, do we pass the net, the 427 to the employees, or do they get the full 5.07 and we eat the million of increased costs? How does that work?
I think that's what's called negotiations.
Okay. But I thought we just.
Right, Pete?
All right. I'm not negotiating here. I just wondered. Okay.
No, I'm not, I wasn't
just raised the
calling
question.
you out on that. That's not a set decision.
Okay.
That's
Thanks.
what it's all about.
Okay.
I mean,
Any other questions?
this is kind of a joke, but kind of not. So if people threaten to recall Newsom again next year, do you think we'll get 5 again?
Maybe.
So, or we get our enrollment up. Those are basically the two options.
Well, I'm sure there's other options, but those are the most obvious.
Okay.
I mean, you could make huge cuts but that isn't very pleasant.
No.
No, and we're at the point where our cuts are programs in a lot of ways. So we got to consider that. And Lois, I'm not sure if you saw this or if this was built in. I know in the May revision, they didn't include anything for pension. Well, it was minimal, but I got an update from Capital Advisors, goodness, June 9th. They said it proposes nearly $3 billion over 4 years of non-Prop 98 funds to mitigate school employer pension.
And that's what I was talking about. The legislature was pushing for that, but I didn't see it in the
You didn't see it come through.
in the done deal. I'd love to
Okay.
see that come through. That would be huge.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
Is that a supplemental thing that they may come back with, Lois? Or is this it? What we have now?
It's, anything's possible, but I think generally what they've decided on as of today or yesterday is pretty much it.
Got it.
But it will be more, God, can I talk? It'll be explained more clearly at the school services workshop next week or 2 weeks. In
2 weeks from now, yeah.
Because I saw that up at the pensions as well, and I didn't know if there was like a follow-up or a final correction or some sort
It's
of.
a dance between the governor and the legislature, and they figure out where they can come to terms.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I enjoyed the presentation. I especially enjoyed the Super Cola slide in particular.
I have no idea what that is. It must be a drink somewhere in the world.
It's extra caffeine.
Yeah, that was great. Well, I think that we are probably ready to vote then. So do we?
If we're ready to vote, then Lois,
Uh-huh.
I am going to miss you.
No.
I know I've grown on you too, but I want you to know that you're leaving, and I feel as though you have treated our school district and our funds and our kids as if this was your own money and your own family, and that you were doing your best job to protect those special funds from anybody who was trying to mess up the nest. And so anyhow, whether we agreed with you every day or didn't agree with you every day, we want you to know, I want you to know, I always felt like your heart was in the right place. Your mind was always excellent. And I think that your stewardship of the time that you were here was excellent. I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate the work that you did. And you've seen our district through some good and bad times, and you were really steady all the way through them. And I want you to know, I appreciate that. And we're going to miss
Thank you so much, Rich. That's
I
very
wish you the best
kind.
of luck.
And just so you know, I do have the last item on the agenda.
I'll wait till then, although, Rich, you're waxing eloquent today, man. I just want to say 13 months ago, I remember we had a hearing and Brother Stefanisco had to say, let's not take counsel with our fears now. It might all work out. When we were looking at an $18 million reverse in our funding.
Yeah.
I was looking at those in my binders that I keep from year to year. I had a question about, I imagine the one-time money isn't in here. And I wondered if you had a sense to share with us. I understand we'll get it, we'll figure it out, and there'll be trailers and it'll drib and drab in. What's your sense of what kind of one-time money we're going to see?
There was a slide the first time, Bill, that you missed.
I'm sorry,
that I did. That's all right. And I'm trying to remember the total.
I've got the CSBA update on my phone here. So first of all, go backwards a little bit. General fund revenue to buy down long-term pensions was not included. So you're correct there.
Okay, thank you.
And then under other programs, $3 billion in one-time funding through 2028 for the California School Partnership, $257 million for one-time A through G, $250 million for CTE. So there's lots of different pots of money. We just have to see where we fall on all those. There's expanded learning and recovery. There's teacher recruitment. I get all the CSB updates. If it comes to you in your box, it was yesterday's brief. You could read through all the different pieces of it. So
Let me see if I can share this for you, Bill. This was the slide Lois was referencing, correct, Lois?
Well, and now I may not be clear of what Bill's referring to. Yes, this was for the COVID relief one-time money, but maybe Bill was referring to the laundry list of what
Simply
Governor
through- yeah.
Newsom's offering.
Yeah, I would say both and. I mean, this is nice and those are big chunks of money. I like that. And there's more. So it's millions and millions we're thinking about with, okay, and we'll be talking, I'm sure, about a plan how to deal with it, which, doesn't reverse the structural deficit. I'm just looking, as you have taught me to look, on page 1 of the overall unrestricted, restricted, and I see in year 23, 24, we have a $5.4 million deficit spending. And of course, this is a budget and that's worst case, but we still have that structural challenge. I tell you, the concern that I have, and I like that we're going into another year being held harmless from enrollment, but we know which way our stair steps are going. And I think that's a place where we just need to circle up with all our stakeholders, Jeremy, and really look to say, what does that look like? And are there ways we can mitigate that? But I'll just say it now, Lois, I like that you had, I don't know if you noticed, you had your forwarding address on one of the slides for Novato. That was cute. I don't know if that was,
I missed that.
oh, you did at the bottom of the one. Yeah. Thank you for everything you've done. I agree with Rich. You've been like a mother bear, like your own money. And having not number people like me and not in the education world of the weird Machiavellian thing of finance, your ability to make the complex be manageable is greatly appreciated. And so I wish you very well down in Nevada. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I did forward to Jeremy, and he can get it on to you, a document from school services that explains the allowable uses of all that COVID money.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'll wait until the last item. But I think on this item, we're ready for a vote. I can't remember if I took motions. Did I? No, so I'll take motions.
I'll make a motion that we accept the budget 6.3.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
No. Passes 5-0. You're welcome. Thank you, Lois.
No controversy on the last one.
And now we are moving on to item 6.4, which is a contract with Danis Walliver Kelly to provide legal services.
Yep.
Superintendent
So,
Decker?
yes. So we currently have a retainer with school, college, and legal services, and we use them often. There are certain items, especially with regard to land use, where I've worked with Danis Walliver and Kelly in the past, and they have a knowledge base and access to information and lawyers that I think would benefit the district. This doesn't commit us to any retainer. It's simply pay per use. But in order to use these individuals, we have to have a contract in place.
Great.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
We have to make
Rich?
a resolution, or is it
Nope, just a contract.
you just need a motion?
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we approve this contract.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, now we move on to item 6.5. This is a consideration of contract with Studer Education, also being presented by Superintendent Decker.
Yeah, and there's a lot in this contract. It would take a very long time to go through everything, but I'm really just going to try to summarize why I'd like to utilize the services. So as a larger district, it's sometimes hard to align all of our different leadership groups, meaning site administration, district office staff, board, and then obviously to our teaching staff. It's very difficult to align all of our systems to really, to push us in the right direction and make sure we're all working together cohesively. So Studer Education, and specifically I'm going to speak about Pat Greco. She's a retired superintendent out in Wisconsin. We had a team visit her professional development opportunity put on by the county office. Was it 2 years, Lisa, when we went to that, or was it last year? I can't even remember anymore. It was 2 years ago, right? 2 years, yeah. I went when I was with Cloverdale, actually, and saw Windsor's team there at the time. And she was very well received by everybody. She's been my, I was given a coach, being a new superintendent in the county, but because I wasn't a new superintendent, they gave me Pat Greco. And we worked together. We've talked about our systems and how we can align things. And I asked, I'd like to continue this partnership potentially, so please make me a proposal with your company. And that's what was done. It's a large number. And so I reached out to the county office and asked if they would be willing to partner with us on some of these fees. And they did agree. We'll write a proposal. We'll submit it on Friday. There's a high likelihood that it will be approved. And the concept is that Windsor becomes a model district with regard to our systems and continuous improvement processes. So this group would work with our leadership to align us in our systems and make sure that we are being efficient and focused and reviewing kind of our initiatives in a good cycle. And there was, that's it. So how about that? If you have any questions, because I could go on and on. I don't want to go bullet by bullet and say everything they're going to do. I don't think that's really what you're asking me. But if there are questions specifically about the contract, happy to answer them.
All right, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, so thank you, Jeremy. I'm intrigued. I think it's a plus. I like the fact that we have the SCO coming all in to help because it's a big investment. I think it's a big need, frankly. I think it allows us to pivot coming out of COVID and be another trend setter. I like how much of the stakeholder engagement there is across all the different groups, the community, your labor groups, board, your site leaders. One of the things I had just sort of a question about is what's the deliverable on the back end? It wasn't clear to me. I read through all the materials like I'm sure we all did. But, when we get through the end of their process, do they give us some flesh out to augment strategic plans, or what comes at the end, or generally do you expect might come at the end?
My answer is not going to be sufficient. I mean, really what I would say the end product is that we have a coherent system of communication between all of our different leadership groups, and that we're in alignment of our priorities and how we review our progress on those priorities and continuously get better. I mean, that's the end. It's not something I can walk away with. It's not so tangible as that, but that's really what the end product is. And honestly, I think, Bill, for me, the end product is a system that is not so dependent on the personalities of a person. And so that we, Windsor is set up for success for the next 20, 30, 40 years because we have systems in place, regardless of who is in our leadership positions. Obviously, they have an impact, but maybe it's, maybe a poor leader's impact is minimized because our system is such that it protects the school or the district from that poor leadership.
Thanks. So to Bill's, I'm sorry, go ahead, Eric.
If you're going to follow up with Bill, that's fine. I have something else.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, this is a significant investment, and the fact that SCO is willing to chip in so much of it, that's important to me because they see value in it as well. And so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is when we're done, what is it that we hope to have? Because if our leadership team and everybody now is all integrated and it's working really well, but as some of those pieces retire, move, for whatever reason, change over time, how do we reintegrate the new folks into this system? So what is it? What is
fair? That's a fair question.
What is it we're going to have that we're going to be able to continue to perpetuate it with?
Well, I would hope it's our processes. It's what we focus on in board meetings. It's how the cabinet determines what we're going to be working on, how principals integrate with the cabinet and the board. What are we going to lead to? Hopefully improved outcomes for students. But part of what we need to do is we can focus on 978 different things in our district, and they're all important. But we need to really identify what our leadership is going to really focus on and leverage, and then have a cycle of continuous improvement, meaning we review our progress. A lot of this stuff we can do. What happens is the job gets in the way. So you get going, with whatever it may be. I don't need to give you examples of what the job entails, but we don't necessarily do a good job of then focusing on our system because we're putting out a fire, we're getting some compliance document done. And this is an investment in truly focusing on our system so we constantly have the right things at the forefront of what we focus on, and we're all focused on it. There's no disconnect between the board goals and potentially the LCAP and then the SIPSAs at the sites. All of these things are basically strategic plans for the district. And right now, we're not in perfect alignment. We've got some work to do. And so this is hopefully getting us in alignment through a better focus and having some experts come in and ensure that we are in alignment. To your point, Rich, again, I don't have a tangible thing. Really what we're hoping is we have improved outcomes based on what we identify as a need, because we're all focused on that need or what we're hoping to achieve. And we're constantly assessing our progress through, you've got employee engagement and work-based culture surveys, parent and student stakeholder survey. I mean, there's a lot of different parts to this, but it's really improved outcomes for students is what we're hoping to accomplish.
I think Eric was next.
Yeah, you've answered much of what I was curious about, but the other little piece is, maybe, I hate to be the negative here, what's in it for SCO? Are they going to ask of us then to be a model where other districts will come in and take some of your time to learn what's happened? Are we expected to go present at conferences? Not we, but probably you and your board or your
Sure.
cabinet. We're getting something from them, but what's on the back end? Is it going to be worth bang for the buck?
I think so. I mean, there haven't been any major requests besides we know this work needs to be done countywide. And I will say SCO feels like we have the right pieces in place to pull it off so that, yeah, maybe people are coming in. They can't require me to go and present it, anything, or our district staff. But I think really it's hopefully lead this process and be willing to share ideas and maybe even get a foothold of doing continuous improvement right in Sonoma County. But they haven't made any specific requests.
And are we one of the first counties to do this, or has it happened in other areas of the state outside of Wisconsin or wherever you talked about?
They're actually all over the place. So we attended a conference, a Zoom conference, but this is nationwide. So they're in California, but they have a high presence in Wisconsin, obviously, in Oregon. God, Lisa, do you remember some of the other places? I mean, they're all over the place.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say, Stephanie, as I recall back at the beginning of time at the meeting, and there may be public comment on this issue.
There is, yeah, and I will get to that once the board is done commenting. So I was actually just going to comment quickly and then read the public comment that came in. So I think this is really exciting. I think it's really important. In my law practice, I work with a lot of clients where systems and processes are really important to their business. So, and I think it, like in any organization, it's the way that you put out the fires, right? It's the choices that you make. It's the process that you follow. Is there a process? Is it being reinvented each time? And I think when people come in, they will just learn the process because it's kind of like, that's how things are done and that's the culture. Right. And so I think I can see how it would be hard to, explain deliverables or to say like this is where we want to be, because most likely what it will do, it will cause more self-reflection, that will cause more identification of things that we want to do, and it will lead to even more work.
It's almost like an audit and a solution.
Right. But creating the system so that you're capable of doing that additional work because you've made the underlying things that used to take up so much of your time more efficient is what I hope will ultimately happen. The public comment I have is from Laurel Green. She wasn't able to be here and she asks a question. She says, the contract speaks of imported engagement. Can you give us a sense of or examples of the frameworks and practices that might include?
Yeah, since I knew what the public comment was, I actually searched the term imported engagement and it's not in the contract. I'm wondering if that was like a text predictor and it was a different word. And so there is no imported engagement in this contract, but maybe she meant employee engagement and it just did a different protect. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
maybe it auto changed. Well, why
That's what
don't you
I'm wondering.
speak to employee engagement if that was in the contract, and then hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, the concept of employee engagement and when they discuss this with us is we sometimes operate in a vacuum. We're far away from classrooms or student experience as administration. You know, we're 4 levels removed from that student. And so we need to make sure we're reaching out to our employees to figure out their feedback, their experience within our district of our systems, right? Let's just talk about how we onboard somebody for a new hire. What does that system look like? Is it efficient? Are we wasting paperwork? Are we doing 8 steps that could be done in one, which requires us to have another position in the district? I don't know. But the concept is that we send out surveys that employees fill out to give us feedback that we can identify high level or high frequency items that come up and then address those systems to be more efficient. So that's really what the employee engagement part of this is. I think that's really the only explanation I can give if that's what the question was.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, feedback? Okay. I'll take motions. Do we have a first motion?
I'll move to approve the contract with Studer Education as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Don't think so. Motion passes 5-0. And we move on. 6.6. This is consideration of approval of education protection account report for 2020 to 2021. Last item by Lois Standring.
So I was wrong. It's not the last item on the agenda. Chris gets that honor tonight. This is another compliance one. We do it every year. This is a little pot of money that Governor Brown did back when we did, was it Proposition 30, I believe, that set up that extra sales tax. And we have to publicly announce how we're going to be spending the money that we receive through that funding source. And it can only be spent on teachers. So that's what we're going to spend it on. And as I show, it gets spent at a couple of sites. It's the high school. With the amount we get these days, we can spend it all at Windsor High School. And the other line is for Cali. So that, and then this will get posted through the board item on the website, which is another requirement for this.
All right, any questions? I don't see any. I will just say my goodbye. It'll be hard moving on without you, I think, because to echo what everyone else said, you just bring so much to your role. And the example is that you are still here, even though you now have another job that I'm sure is taking up a lot of your time. So I appreciate everything that you've done, getting to know you. It's been really, really wonderful. And I wish you all the best in your new role.
Thank you so much. And I wish Windsor all the best. I will continue to pay attention.
Oh, God.
And I haven't had my turn. I haven't had my turn, Lois, but we pretty much started here at Windsor at the same time. So we've been through a lot together, the goods and the bads, and the bond issues and all the other things that have gone on. But I think maybe the highest praise I could pass along is that my daughter, who's a business major, I'm kind of pushing her to see if she might want to be a CBO someday.
Oh, there you
because
go.
I see what difference you can make in the school district, and she has a passion for business and is studying that in college now, and so maybe she'll be coming after your job someday. So we'll
There
see.
you go. That's great.
Thank you.
I hope so.
Thank you for all your hard work, Lois.
Thank you, Mo and Ollie. I'm sorry that I don't get to know you better, but I think you're going to do great things for the district. And thank you all. It has been a wonderful opportunity. I will miss Windsor. I miss all my friends there, but you know, as I tell everyone, you really work for a paycheck. You know, paycheck and passion together. And I believe my time in Windsor was well spent, but it is, as you know, time for me to move on. So thank you all for being part of my experience in Windsor. I will be continuing to help out as needed through this transition, but I will tell you, I'm really glad the budget's done.
I bet. Well, enjoy your summer. And with that, we will vote. We will take motions and vote on this item. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Laura.
do I have a first motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this item.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, Bill got it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, 5-0. It passes. Thank you very much, Lois.
Adios, Lois. Godspeed.
I hope you have a relaxing summer as much as possible. All right, last item, consideration of approval of middle school counselor job description. Chris Canalake, is this is not your last meeting, I hope?
Yeah, it kind of is, but I was hoping to
Oh.
avoid any speeches or anything like that, please. I'm going to be around through the rest of July, but we're not meeting, of course, with the board. So,
Oh, well, we'll try. I'll see if we honor your request. But I make no guarantees. Tell us
All
about this item.
all right. Well, honestly, this is sometimes in human resources departments make little mistakes, and this is the case in this one. Is that we've had a middle school counselor position for many years, and then when it was last hired a couple of years ago, it was posted with the high school counselor job description. That was noticed, and we looked high and low, under every rock, in every desk drawer, in every computer file, and we could not find a middle school counselor position. So I worked with with administration since this position's now vacated, which is a good timing to create a new position. It does have some unique qualities to it, and it has a different calendar than the high school counselor position as well. So that was the reason for creating a new job description here.
Okay, makes sense. Any questions or comments? Any speeches? No, thank you for everything, Chris.
All right.
I don't have a speech, but I just want to say thank you also for your hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
I wish I could have stayed longer. I really do. It was not my intention to leave after sort of a short spell, but things really changed for us, and we're obviously it's a happy move for my wife and I, and for my family. So I'll always have a warm spot in my heart for Windsor, and will always remember my associations here. It feels like just for me, it's an amazing place to have finishing my career, because it's such good people and such a sweet little community that includes the town and the school district.
Chris, this winter, you're going to think that Windsor's a much more warmer place than you think it is right now. So
I grew up in the Arctic tundra, so that'll be nothing. This place is warm.
you don't have a big R factor there on your insulation, so you'll be bundling up. You'll be calling Jeremy about December going, I'll come back for free. Just tell my wife. So anyhow,
too funny.
Hope you'll enjoy it up there. And again, I know you haven't been very long, but I guess the highest compliment I can pay you is that Jeremy had a lot of confidence in you and and spoke very highly of you. I didn't get a chance to work with you very much, but Jeremy had high praises for you, and we're thankful that we had you for the time that we did.
Right. Yep. I mean, it's an unprecedented year, and we're glad that you were with us during this time.
Thank you for leading us through some difficult personnel challenges in the last year or two, and we appreciate your experience and wish you well in the future.
All right, I'll take motions. First motion on this item.
I'll make motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, 5-0. We are getting very efficient. we're not even reading items anymore. We're just approving items, and I'm enjoying our new processes that we have adopted as a board. With that, I think we are moving on to 7.1, future school board items calendar, which we don't really need to discuss. It's just a standing item. And 8.1, meeting adjournment. Unfortunately, the time has come again.
So again, if you could announce for the public before we step off, President Stephanie, when the board is getting back together, because that workshop will be an open session item.
It will. We are, I think it's the 24th of July, but let me make sure I'm correct about the date.
It is the 20th.
Yep. The 24th from 9 to 4, we are scheduled for a board retreat. I think we are scheduled at the district office unless we've done something more. Nope, we're going to meet at the district office, and we have lots on the agenda, and people are and the community are welcome to observe.
I should say we still might change the venue, but right now, let's say it's district office.
Yeah,
we may have.
and we should, we'll talk about this offline, but we should set a time to do some serious planning of that.
I agree. Yep.
But yes, 9 to 4, and we will announce the place if it changes. Go ahead, Rich.
Any idea, does anybody have any idea of when we're actually going to start meeting in person again?
Yep, our next meeting will be in person. Our issue right now is that we need access to the town, and right now they have it locked down, so they can only use it. But with the new change in the Brown Act, we're going to need to meet in person in August.
A couple months. I was just trying to figure out how much longer I can wear shorts to my board meeting.
So it sounds like the third week of August, the pants have to come back. So put that in your calendars, everyone. Let's prepare.
And I was working on that summer tan too, darn it.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion for us to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Thank
All
you,
in
ma'am.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, meeting is adjourned.
Good
8:33
month,
p.m.
everybody. We'll see you on the 24th. God bless.
Guys.
Aye.
Aye.